right? Simplify it, break it down. And what are the 3 things that I can do today that's going to move me closer to my goal? And that's how we have really gotten into this groove of simplifying the complexities of our lives to improve and get better and become effective.
Welcome, friends, to the Budo Brothers podcast. My name is David, and joining me, as always, are Eric and Kyle, founders of Budo Brothers. Gentlemen, let's do this today.
How's it going? Can't wait.
Here we go. We're going to talk about simplifying, and simplifying with an effort to improve something. So, lots of directions that we can go in with this. I'm gonna kind of start it out here and saying, is there something that you had going on, either personally, professionally, or whatever else, that you came to a realization where, you know what, I have to pare this back in order to get better?
When you look at life in general and how complicated it can get, I just feel like there's an endless amount of examples to draw from where it's like, when things get really complicated, you need to start to break things down and simplify, get to the basics where it's in these bite-sized chunks. Like what we've learned with what we're doing right now in developing all these new products is that often, as complicated as it is to have 12 different new products on the go at the same time, sometimes you need to break down that complexity and bite that elephant one bite at a time, right? Simplify it, break it down. And what are the 3 things that I can do today that's going to move me closer to my goal? And that's how we have really gotten into this groove of simplifying the complexities of our lives to improve and get better and become effective.
I also know that a lot of the roadblocks that we experience right now in business that are preventing us from getting farther and farther along come from the inability to hyper focus 100% on
work
on Budo Brothers, because we still both have jobs that are distracting us from working on this full time. And when you're constantly shifting back and forth with your mindset and switching back and forth, you're doing 2, 3, 4, 5 things, but you're not getting into deep focus on any one of those things.
Which is beautiful.
And it's amazing how much work you could get done in an hour of deep focus versus 8 hours of mindlessness.
Right. Distractions and notifications and emails and tweets and like getting to the point where you can act. And I've actually got into this practice where if I need to get something done, I turn off my phone and get into that space where I am not distracted, where I can break something that's complex, break it down into its simple form and start to attack it piece by piece.
The Stoics also had it figured out. The Stoics were, I think, amazing at taking complicated and just a lot of emotional turmoil and simplifying it to what can I affect right now in this moment of time. A few episodes ago, we spoke about we were speaking about beacons and using them as your guiding light. Sometimes I also use these beacons, which are projections of what's the most important thing in your life and working towards that goal, as tools to decide whether I'm making my life too complex. If your goal is to finish a book, like you're going through, David, and you're pretty much done right now, but if your goal is to finish a book, you can determine what stage you're at. Like if you're in the writing process, the simple thing to do to get you to the promised land of that completing that task is to clear everything and to write. And so many things can happen in a day to pull you away from that and get complex. And the best use of your time is to simplify everything and put all of your attention and focus into that task. Another area I really find it drips into is finding problems. I used to catch myself doing this a lot when I was in a tough situation, is when I had something that was disturbing or I needed to focus on or I was procrastinating about, I would talk to somebody else and dive deep into their problems. Like, oh man, that sucks. And then you'd be talking through their problems. Like, you should do this. And like, but all you're doing is procrastinating and taking away from you actually focusing on your problems in the present moment.
Right. Dramatizing other people's
by adding more complexity. Why do you pick up
other people's issues and other people's
and try to sort those out?
Right. Like,
and you have no effect on the outcome.
It's not your problem.
Yeah. Even sometimes with the media and the turmoil that you see on news and stuff,
that's easy to get caught up in.
It can break your whole rhythm of your day by like trying to calculate and figure out what should I do? How should I act? How should I respond? Not saying that you shouldn't be aware of what's going on in your surroundings, but
dude, mainstream media, man, I'm not kidding. My life drastically improved when I cut my cable and I stopped listening to just mainstream shit. And I only listen to people that I respect and actually care about and idolize. And there is so many wise people out there that you can learn from. And when I started to shut off the noise and started to tune in to the gold, man, then you know what? The reality is with news, if something's important enough, you'll hear about it. You know,
oh, absolutely.
Everyone's busy. Everyone's busy enough watching every day of CNN of the next thing you should be freaking out about because it's sensationalism.
Yes. And Steve Jobs, I think, has the best quote when it comes to simplifying your life. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Nice.
Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Cool.
And it's how Apple dominated the cell phone world. When smartphones were coming out, other companies had multiple SKUs, designs. This one did this one did that. And Apple just focused on one thing, perfecting one thing. And it crushed
the competition.
All of its competition. I used to not understand how important it is to get rid of all the balls in the air. And even internally, you could see that you're juggling so many things, but cutting it back and just holding one of the balls that you're juggling and focusing on it and completing a task or completing a cycle.
No kidding.
We always talk about this, completing a task or completing a cycle.
Right.
And then wrap it up.
Because loose ends kill you.
And then focus on the next thing. And
so I want to interrupt you just because I want to go back to something you said just a couple minutes ago.
Yeah.
And it was in relation to someone else's problems, right? And I just want to give you a little bit of food for thought because I am in disagreement because of how my brain works.
Good.
And for me as a person, it helps me to stay balanced and to stay focused. If I can sit down with another person, connect with them, listen to what they have going on and be that ear and be that advice. And even though I am not at that moment focused on my own tasks and my own issues, I'm the type where if I hyper focus on one thing in my life, it will drag me down because I don't have that balance of, I have to kind of extrovert my feeling on somebody. I've got to hear their stories and their personal story. And by feeling like I'm helping them with their things, it brings me a sense of peace and balance that I feel like I can focus on mine better.
Right.
And so I think a lot of it does come down to how your brain works. You know, some people are great at multitasking and they can have 5 projects in front of them and they can make the work on it and go like that. I'm not that person. I tend to get caught up in the little details. There was something in the writing game that I always thought was a really neat twist in how to think of it, because, for me, I'd get lost in that, where I'm in the middle of writing the book and I'm worried about what the cover is going to look like, it's not productive at all to think that way. And, or what it's going to turn out like, or what the story is going to turn out like. And the saying is, you can't edit what you haven't written.
Nice.
And it's totally true. Like, if you're saying, like, if put it in the business world, right? Or in, entrepreneurship of some kind, if I'm creating a product, if I'm sitting here just thinking about all the different things about it and how it's going to work and what it's going to look like and maybe change it and so on and so forth, if I don't sit down and get to a starting point and think to myself, okay, look, I'm going to make some mistakes, but at least I'll have it and I can improve it, instead of just constantly going, churning through this idea and never actually like putting it down. I think that's part of that simplification, is saying, you know what, I need to just get something done and then I'm going to work on it. And that's going to be like, my version of focus. So just some kind of food for thought as to how your brain works. And in some cases, focusing on somebody else and solving somebody else's problem is something that can actually give you, a little bit of balance. Maybe not for everybody, but for me personally, it's definitely a pattern that I noticed.
Beautiful. And I think it's important to distinguish between helping someone and being that ear, that listening presence to help someone through their journey, and taking on their problem and getting involved in the drama and making that problem your problem. That's what we're talking about. We love
don't
helping
absorb
people.
it.
Exactly. That's why you're saying, like, this is your problem and I can help you with it. But also drawing the line, like, this is not my issue. I'm going to go home and I'm going to sleep well tonight. Because this problem is not my problem. I can help you. I can listen and I can help guide based on my life experience. But other than that, it's like that. I think it's important to distinguish that, because I learn a lot from other people's challenges.
Yes, absolutely.
100%, man. It's the most enlightening thing to actually be there for somebody else who's going through something and truly understanding what they're going through. You can learn so much from that experience. And that's where you helping that person, you're actually helping yourself. But when that's all done, that person's challenge that they're working through, hopefully you help them. But when you go home, you're not holding on to that. It's not your problem.
It's like, tell me about the issues you're having with your girlfriend, but I'm not going to call her for you and say you're sorry.
Right. I'm going to go get back to my shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I have my own apologies to dish out. It's all good.
And if we were to put this into the martial arts sphere, simplicity is always going to beat flash and
no kidding.
Like all like
the complex flashy spinorama.
Gosh, like we do a lot of flashy spinner vids in our content because like they look fantastic, they're artistic. But if we're talking fights or conflict, the most direct, simple things are what work.
A nice hook to the jaw. Done.
Like that's why people practice boxing, jabs, crosses, hooks. Like those haven't changed.
No.
Like you haven't done like a reverse hooking punch with a weave, jab, cross
Tornado
hook,
kick,
tornado spin. Like those are cool things, but like there is a base simplicity to martial arts. And unfortunately and fortunately, it is a way that people use to protect something. You can tie into your primal instincts in this. And martial arts hasn't changed much over the
thousands of years.
Yes. It is what it is. It's a way to protect yourself, express yourself. The intent behind it has changed, but the art itself is locked in, and it is what it is. And sometimes when you see people who are expressing themselves in more of an artistic form, where I'm just going to take Filipino martial arts, for example. There's a lot of times within Filipino martial arts, you can have a 27 hit combo, right? Which is a great expression and a great way to practice and develop skill. But in an altercation, if you were to rely on the most important things you need to know, your skill will get very simple and you will be using the most effective and potent things possible.
It's the basics. And you know what's so cool? We learned that from Grandmaster Felix in Pakamut. He was literally like, listen, focus on the fundamentals. If you have fundamentals, the rest takes care of itself. And that's why, like, when you went down to the Jackson Wink Academy.
Yes.
And
when I went down to the Jackson Wink Academy, I had the privilege of meeting John Bones briefly. And we were doing the filming session, and he was doing his training session by himself. Solo practice. And literally, I watched this guy practice his jab for at least a half an hour.
Oh, goodness. Right.
This guy is the best fighter, pound for pound fighter in the world right now. And he was practicing his jab for a half an hour.
Over and over and over.
And you're sitting there watching a newer martial artist do like all these crazy 36 hit combos.
And then you can do this. And then you can do this. And then you can do this.
And you're watching the best in the business practice his one punch.
Making it simple.
Simplifying it. Because he knows that the root of martial arts all comes to timing, angles, and distance. And the one who controls that controls everything.
Amen.
It takes me right back to that quote. That's a Bruce Lee quote, right? Not fearing the man who can throw 10,000 different kicks, but fearing the man who practiced one kick 10,000 times.
Definitely.
You know, and it reminds me of that. And that's part of it, is that scaling it down, you know, and even, there was another one, right? Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
I mean, there's that too. Everything hit 37 hit combo is like, you know, when you're just talking about something simple and you're breaking it down like that. And so, so on those fundamentals, is there something in your training that you've noticed, you know, where you got kind of caught up in the fanciness of something, so to speak, and had to be like, okay, I'm going to step this back and break it down and then work on these individual steps? Is there a particular art that you thought was more in line with that mode of thinking than another one, or, you know, something along those lines?
I'll come back to this, but I have to share a story from what you said before, that quote of getting punched in the face.
Right.
One of my biggest privileges in life is punching kids in the face for the first time. Being a martial arts instructor and being the first person to actually throw a punch at a kid and just watching their face when they're like, I just got punched in the face, and like they don't know whether to cry, and like you're doing it light enough, it's not gonna, it's not gonna hurt.
Training.
It's
Yeah.
training.
You got bopped. You got
they're
bopped.
moving into that light sparring phase,
Right. You didn't move.
Yeah.
and you hit them, and it's like, do I cry? Do I fight back? Like they're so, because they've never experienced that before.
And if you haven't experienced it, it throws your plans out the window.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And like they're not at home, and hopefully their parents aren't just punching them in the face, like, you know, like that's one of the perks of being a martial arts instructor.
It's just the way you phrased that was just really precious, man. One of my great joys is punching kids in the face for the first time.
Yeah, but sorry, let's just recap the question you asked there. It was
I don't even remember. I'm stuck on that image now. Like I can't even handle that. Okay, so it was something in one of the arts that you have practiced.
Oh, yeah. Right, complex.
Where you felt like you had to scale it back, like somewhere where you recognize, like, okay, man, I need to step this back and simplify it in order to accomplish the thing I want to accomplish.
You know what's interesting? I recently took Sifu Singh's Qigong course. We've both been incorporating Qigong into our life because turns out solo training's kind of a thing during lockdown and COVID quarantine, right? So we've been really focusing. What I loved about this phase is with all of the complexities of some of the really, when you get into the weeds of certain arts, it can get complex. And what I like really thoroughly enjoyed about Qigong is it's all about that fundamental base movement, getting your hips moving, connecting your body, getting that kinetic chain wrapped up so it can whip. Now I finally understand where Sifu Singh is talking about how that's how he generates his powers, by focusing on slow movement and getting that kinetic chain connected so that it can unleash, because you're connected. You're able to produce incredible results with minimal effort. And now for the first time, until I've actually experienced it, man, that fundamental, breaking down the fundamentals and focusing on the basics, whether it's just kinetic chains in the body or the basics of any art, that's where the secret sauce is.
And one thing that we've learned is that there's only so many truths. There is only so many ways to do anything. The expression of that is what's infinite. And how I could relate it to martial arts, for me, is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So watching and starting Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, there are so many holds and positions and transitions. And like when you first start, it's like drinking from a fire hose.
It's a chess game.
Right.
But once you play around and you start sparring and practicing it more, there's only so many ways that the body can be locked.
Right.
And there's only so many ways that the body can be choked. And once you realize that, you can start seeing all the patterns emerge, and you can understand that I need to squeeze these parts together or constrict this. You start looking at the body more holistically and simply than all these little moving parts. Now, it's very complicated in the ways that you can get there, and that's what you could spend a lifetime learning. But there's only so many ways in arm bends.
Right.
There is only so many ways to put yourself into a chokehold. And getting to that route is the complicated part. But once you understand,
it becomes simplified.
You simplify and you start seeing the little details that people use in order to propel their skill.
It's a chess game, right? There's one checkmate, but there's, almost a limitless number of ways to get to that point. And so that is where those fundamentals come into play. Now, what about in go ahead.
And we recently got to go film a professional fighter, Melissa Croden, and she is a superstar in the making. But just watching the details in stealing space, because when they're sparring and stuff, they're literally working with stealing milliseconds, because at the base of it, everybody, when you reach pro fighting level, is starting to get to the same skill levels. Just like any athletic sport. Like a sprinter is working to shave 1/100th of a second off.
No kidding. Milliseconds.
Right? So you would think that these guys would start training new methods and new ways. They always go back to the basics.
Cool.
They always go back to, in martial arts, that the footwork, like producing speed, relaxing, controlling breath, like all of these basic fundamentals, and building their fight IQ. It's so impressive to watch.
So that's an interesting one too. Those little steps, those simple steps that end up adding into something huge, towards the end of it, and how that sort of, and how it kind of, how you can increase it. And I think that's one of the things that's very discouraging for a lot of people when they're training or when they're learning something new, is like, I got to step back and I got to do this movement over and over and over and over and over again. Like if I'm learning how to fight with a sword, I've got to spend 6 months learning how to look at the sword and draw the sword, so to speak. You know what I mean? And there's a view of that where it's like, I just want to get to the good stuff really fast. And you find out that when you start cutting those corners and ignoring those simple steps, you just can't get there.
Right. There's no foundation to build on.
Right. Is there something in your business experience where you've had to strip that down and say, all right, look, we can't achieve this. What are our steps in order to get there?
I look at how we had to shut our business down in order to retool. Wow. We looked at this situation, and with the lockdown and all our suppliers, all our manufacturers, everybody's locked down. We sold out a product. Okay, cool. What are we going to do? Well, we can take this time, take this challenge, and turn it in the opportunity for us to retool, reinvent, create new products, double down, create incredible content, focus on digital seminars, dream up new incredible products for all of us martial artists to enjoy. And that's what we've been focusing on this last little while.
So you're literally in the process of simplifying it, like at this very moment.
100%.
I mean, that's pretty cool, man. I mean, that's really cool to be able to do that, step back, and then use that to grow and then get to those awesome places moving forward.
Build that foundation.
And I want to touch back on that quote, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. We just receive, we laser engrave our products. We ordered a laser engraver online, and this thing came, it's literally in 7,000 pieces.
It's a disaster.
And the user experience of getting this thing up and going is going to be a nightmare.
Oh, no.
But there is something to be said about the entrepreneurs and the business professionals that take the meticulous time and work to think through every element of the delivery of their product or service so that it is absolutely seamless
and enjoyable
when you get it.
And enjoyable. I am enjoying this experience as a purchaser of this product.
And it's deep within our brand. All of the new designs and current designs that we bring out, we want to speak with simplicity. No, we're not knocking on it, but we're going the opposite route of, say, like Affliction, or like these crazy graphic, intense
everywhere,
designs.
Right.
Busy.
Right.
And we want to focus on the simple, beautiful things.
Quality. When you feel it, when you receive a Budo Brothers product, what is the essence that you feel? What are you like? Are you wow? Or are you like, And if you're, well, we'll refund your money and we'll take it back.
And if you bottle up that ideal and methodology behind product design and just made it human design, what is the UX of yourself?
The user experience.
What is it like when you walk into a room?
Yeah. How do you conduct yourself?
How do you conduct yourself? Do people know what they're getting when they get with you, or do you different personalities each time? Is it easy to work with you? Is it enjoyable to work with you?
Empathy. View it from the other person's perspective.
What is the human user experience of yourself?
Ooh, that's a good one.
I think that's the Budo Brothers challenge.
But let's go. Do it. Drop it.
So this is the Budo Brothers challenge. It's twofold. One, you are going to take inventory of the user experience of yourself. You are going to write down what you think it is like to be in the room with yourself. The second thing you're going to do is you're going to talk to 3 to 5 of the closest people to you. And you're going to say, look, I want you to be honest, and you can't get mad at this person for telling you anything. You're going to allow them a safe space to speak, and you're going to ask them, what is the user experience like about yourself?
Around me.
Good and bad.
Right, yeah.
And you're going to compare notes. That is the Budo Brothers
that's
challenge.
a tough one.
Whew. All right.
There's some mustard on that sandwich.
I know. I'm sitting here thinking like, oh man, I gotta shut up while people say this stuff to me. Like, okay, no, it's fine. It's good. Like, I can do that. I'm gonna.
Yeah, you can't jump down their throat and be like, no. What are you talking about? I picked you up last week.
I didn't. No interrupting, man. You can't interrupt. You got to just be like, look, you can just say it and like, we're all good, or just, or leave the room and text it to me and I take my phone away or whatever. No, that's a good one, man. That's a really good one. That's some thought-provoking stuff right there. Any final thoughts on simplifying to improve?
I think it's so easy to complicate our lives, and especially when the environment is changing so rapidly, and every day we wake up, there's a new news story that we're supposed to care about, and there's a new stance that we're supposed to take, and life keeps getting more and more complicated. How can we focus on the basics and simplify our lives and surround ourselves with people that we love, that help us grow and help us become into the powerful human beings that we are? I think that is now more necessary than ever in this complicated world, to simplify things so that we can get connected to who we truly are, so we can go out and serve the world and make the world a better place.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, that's a mic drop moment right there, guys. I think we're gonna wrap this one up. Let people know where to find us. What do we got?
It's simple. See what I did there?
It's not complicated.
You could just type Budo Brothers into any of the internet things and find us, communicate with us, talk to us, share, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely.
It's perfect. Love it. And thank you, gentlemen. This has been a great episode, and I will catch you both and everyone else on the next one.
See you later.
See you next week.